Hello and welcome back. I'm Ashok Gangadine, and this is continuing a series that's been shared widely. And there are two different playlists, and this is really a prologue to a sequel that builds upon what we've done so far. One of the preceding episodes 1 through 5 was a performance of my decades of the quest for the missing source code that has been calling all our greatest minds through the ages, let's say over the last 2,500 years, just to get an arbitrary point, that something profound was missing. And it was really having a profound shift to a deeper missing technology of the source field. People have known for centuries, all our great thinkers and enlightened teachers and wisdom teachers and philosophers, mystics, scientists, that there is a source field, it's infinite. And we have an amazing range of brilliant narratives, teachings about the source. And we have a wealth of information. But what we've seen and have shown in episodes 1 through 5, and now this is really a prelude, a prologue, to what will be a sequel of episodes 6 through 10, to go deeper and to build upon 1 through 5, which shows the power of the missing code and why it changes everything that's not familiar. All of our teachings, all of our scriptures, all of our philosophies, all of our sciences, arts, all of our narratives, all of the mystics, all of that. We will get into that. If you go through 1 through 5, you'll see why it is that the greatest story never told was a kind of generic theme. The greatest story never told. What would that be? And episodes 1 through 5 has really attempted to help the listener journey with me over the 6 decades of my research as a logician and ontologist, philosopher, first philosopher, in quest of what is first, across all borders. And so what's been shown already, upon which we're going to build now, and this is, in a way, a kind of prologue or trailer for what's next, 6 through 10, to take this deeper and build upon 1 through 5. And in addition to that, there's another playlist that's been published with my colleague and son, Nathan Seith Gangadine, 1 through 15, called Breaking the Trance. That's been published. 15 episodes of what it takes to really break the trance that's holding our human journey within a certain code, a derivative code, that has not been able to access into the missing source code. And why the source code, if we can really open up that space, will be finally a new missing technology of mind processing that opens a portal to presence, which is the ground floor of source. And so what I'd like to do in this prelude to the sequel is to just rehearse some of the monumental themes of why is the missing code, why it has been missing. Did Jesus give us the code, the missing code? Did Buddha? Did Krishna? Did Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Lao Tzu, our great geniuses? Did Rumi? You name it. Descartes was in quest of it. For example, from Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, not to mention Heraclitus, Parmenides, but all the way through our great theologians and the Arabic first philosophers, Ibn Arabi, for example, or the mystic Rumi in that tradition, saying there's a field, I'll meet you there. So there's a reference to a field and brilliant teachings to warn us that we can't find it in our ordinary forms of thinking and language and wording that we have evolved over millennia, and which is brilliant to have information technology and the narrative power of word power to talk about it. But the question I've asked in that 6 decades journey of episodes 1 to 5 to show that there is a missing code and we can gain access to it now. And it's a monumental shift in our human journey. to a deeper intimacy and encounter with the source. And one of the simple axioms, so to speak, of the source code, and I use double parentheses to mark the infinite source. And this is a familiar hologram. It's not a diagram, it's a hologram that we use in 1 through 5. There's one of the samplers. It may look complicated, it's very simple, that the double parentheses markers of the infinite source is infinite unum. And the red markers indicates our human journey, which is over brilliant information technologies and mind processing to talk about the source. We can talk about it. And all of our teachings are somehow embedded within the space, and our greatest wisdom teachers and scriptures that we're tapping the source reported it, presented it, narrated it in this space to bring information to the people, which is very important. But still, when you informationize enlightenment and wisdom and Zen and all of the talk about it, or even to speak of Jesus as the Christ, the Logos, a word for the source would be in the Greek, using the Greek Logos, or in the Vedic science, Brahman or Om, or Lao Tzu, the Tao, or in the Judaic tradition, Yahweh, Allah, God, Christ. Christ is here. And if Jesus is Christ, what's here? This is where our teachings have been launched within this space. As great as they are, they still somehow create an invisible wall or barrier to finally crossing into the intimacy with the infinite source, which is the great headlines of the ages. But for all of the brilliance and genius and wisdom across all fields, brilliant poets, performing artists, singer-songwriters, composers of classical, of music and pop, all the musicians, the dancers, all of the different art forms, painters, architects, sacred geometry, all of that. And still, with all of the brilliant teachings we've had from our greatest revered teachers, scriptures, the scriptures are somehow presented here, which is the language of the people, to explain it to the people who live here. And even though our most gifted teachers and visionaries have been able to somehow access the deeper source, when it's lodged and presented to the language, in this language form, which is informationized, even though we speak of the language of the heart, not the language of the mind, I mean, so it's not reason, it's emotions, it's feelings, and that's its feeling, you feel your way. All of these are still encountering that barrier. That's been brought out in great detail in 1 through 5. That there has been a missing code, which is a different technology that's been long emerging for millennia and knocking at the door. And so we had to find a way to access the missing source code. And that's this space. And this space is, brilliant as it is, the stage of our evolution of our mind operating processing of all kinds, of all altered states, and different versions of language and linguistic power and word power here. But if Buddha is teaching the enlightenment, the Four Noble Truths here, and saying you've got to step back from this and enter into shunyata, emptiness, or Vedic science is saying that Om cannot be spoken in ordinary technologies of mind, you've got to somehow let that go, surrender it, detach, and enter into intimacy with Om, where the yogi or the seer would be. Or if Jesus is tapping this Logos, if the Logos in the flesh speaking, embodied and speaking to the people in the culture around him, to the people who have gathered to listen to him. And he's saying things like, I am the way, the truth, and the life, or the kingdom of God is at hand, things like that. And you hear it in this way, you're not really understanding the language, the missing language of Source. Whether you call it Christ language, Buddha language, Vedic language, Tao language, Kabbalah, Sufi, Zen, whatever, to present the greatest teachings, because the deepest call of the human which is coded with the source. We're source sapiens. We still are laboring in the informationized space, whether you call it dualistic or polarizing or fragmenting, or you could use the word Lego. There are Lego units here. Everything is separated, is divided. It's not infinite unum. Unum, when you enter into the unified source field, because it's infinite, it's infinitely one. It cannot be fragmented. And it's the source that infinitely holds all together beyond any naming or this. You can't talk about source here. You can't talk about being here. It's not an object. You can't objectify it. You can't subjectify it. It's deeper. And people have known that and said that. And so in the episodes 1 through 15, the greatest story never told. And I really invite us all just to jump in, because I want to have a playful time with anyone who would listen. And this is not meant to only be right now in whatever we are in the 21st century, but wherever we are in the 22nd century, or a century from now, if viewers, listeners, if this is still available to listen to it, we'll have to face this issue. Am I processing wisdom and scriptures? The scriptures here, or is it deeper? And people have known that the word of God, the word of source, the Om, the Vedic science, the non-dual, all of those terms that have been used, they're all being addressed in this technology which fragments. It's inherently, the red zone fragments. It's a technology of consciousness, great as it is, because we do need information to survive. It's a great evolution, a process that humans have been able to get the informationized space to talk about and have language power here, word power here. But our great teachers realize there's something deeper. There's a deeper language. We don't have it yet. Why? Why can't we, as a human family, cross into the Christ culture, cross into the Vedic culture, cross into the Buddha Dharma, cross into the Logos sphere? Brilliant scientists in, say, the frontier of physics, not to mention the other amazing fields in epigenetics and neuroscience and neuroplasticity and all the great things. And AI is here. AI can't access the source, the infinite flow. So what is it? And that's really 1 through 5, the missing source code exposes this and shows it's derivative. And that means what? Nothing can be without being. Well, people have known that. The source is the source of everything possible. Yeah, but think it through. If you have a narrative to say that Jesus is the ultimate truth and the ultimate way, and some might say the only truth, and Buddha is exposing the Four Noble Truths and the Buddha Dharma of emptiness and the flow of infinite connectivity, Buddha saw that centuries ago, that all is interwoven, non-local, entanglement, whatever words, it's frontier physics, in talking about the boson and God particles and the frequency and vibration. And some are jumping, it's not material, matter is not first, consciousness is first. And suddenly you go from matter is first to even there, it's in the informationized space. And what we did in episodes 1 through 15 with my son and colleague, North and Save, 1 through, those are published. And I'll append the playlist to both Breaking the Trance, namely the whole. People say, we're living in a matrix. And what you take to be real here is a function of your minding and how you use your mind. All that's been said over and over. And if you scroll through any of the social media, whether it be Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, it's amazing how many short performances are speaking very beautifully of reporting how the great mystics were saying, we got to go there. I'm reporting all the great information, which is just God in everyone. That's true. If you realize that nothing can be without being. The unum axiom is the infinite unity, not unity here, which is divisive. Unity, whose unity? We say United States, or United States, we are one. No, or all of the religions between Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and on, all of the religions, we are one. One mountain, many paths. You hear things like that. Or this is a moment of choice, without realizing that the ultimate choice is the choice to step back from immersion here and to make a deeper vote, a deeper agency, to go from a bound space to a free range human. We don't hear that clarified. So what came out in episodes 1 through 5, my decade's quest to see that there is a missing code. And even the word logos here in the Greek, when you take any word here and you see, it's to be a source word, transformed. So if logos here is not logos. Christ here is not Christ. I is not I am. USA is not USA. For example, for any culture, or any form, unity here is not onum. Onum is infinite unity with infinite diversity. Diversity here is compromised. And if it's either unity or multiplicity, one or many, which one? Tug of war for centuries. Oh, if it's one, then down with diversity. If it's diversity and poly and pluribus, then down with the unum. How can they be unum pluribus? A profound unity that's so profound, infinite, that it has infinite diversity built into all the possibilities, realized and unrealized, through human experience and cultures and so forth. Reality is profound and deep. And so it cannot be being, it's not some ultimate substance, it is presence. This is presence. So those teachers who say that the ultimate source is awareness are right, it's true knowledge, this is true. But now, what has not been faced, and this was brought out in episode 1 through 5, and break the trance. How do you break through from here? And I've pointed out that if human cultures and scriptures and teachings have been rendered in this technology of informational narrative, and not yet getting access to the narrative here, in this space, the double parentheses narrative, not this narrative, but the deeper missing narrative. Every word we speak, in whatever language we have, in any discipline we have, has a double entendre between being rendered in this code or having an analog in the deeper missing code of the grammar of presence. This has all been brought out. And what's astounding is that once you begin to open up the unum axiom, as source is infinite, and I hope you see all humans are inscribed with the light of source. We're source sapiens. Even though we're in Lego lands, Lego meaning separate units and fragmentation and polarization and ideologies and divisions and wars and violence and human degradation and violence with nature and with each other and all of that's going on here. And we've shown that with all of the pathologies across the human condition, despite all of the great scriptures that we have in wisdom teachings informationized, somehow we're still not crossing. And it's not just a nice option, well, look, come on folks, let's go enter presence. No, you don't just waltz your way into presence. We know that. You can't barge in, you can't hack it, you can't download it here. So what's the deal? What takes us from this technology, the Lego mental, into the source technology that all our great scriptures and wisdom and enlightenment teachings are urging us urgently to end the suffering? This is suffering. Why? Because it's gross shredding and fragmentation from the technology itself, which has not been clearly called out. It's not just get away from the ego. The ego is a result, a symptom of the technology. I and it, the object, nature, everything we talk about is a symptom, an effect of the technology that had to be called out. So to really call this red zone out, one needs to somehow find, can we step back and mind our minding and become critical aware at the first level of awareness, to become aware of how we conduct our minds and how we live our lives and our experience. As diverse as it is, our wide-ranging ideologies and worldviews and disciplines and art forms and modalities are all laboring under. So when people now say we're living in a matrix, in a way, it's clearly true, a matrix. What matrix? It's a technology that allows us to have a world and have a self and have experience and have a life and have a culture and politics. And all of the arts and sciences and knowledge here, we know, we have knowledge. We can have truth here. But if the ultimate calling is the unum, the source, or whatever name, if you say God is infinite, or Christ is calling us, or the Buddha shunyata, emptiness, or the Zen mindfulness in the moment, or even if you say now here in time here is not now here. If you're called to live in the present, not in the past, not in the future, but now, that is weak, that's anemic. Because to enter now is precisely to enter into presence, and to enter into presence is to ignite into the awareness of the technology, of interconnectivity, of intimacy with the infinite. Instead of a finite technology, what's been missing, the barrier, is that we still haven't found the technology to surf in the infinite space, which is where we blossom as a full person, as a first person. In the first. This is the first field, the origin, the source, the first. Excuse me. This is just a review of what we've done already and it's been presented in the last 2-3 years and beyond. Also did a series called 1776 Now. 1776 not here. When we say we hold these truths to be self-evident, that humans are endowed with human rights as first persons of life, liberty, freedom, well-being, and we form governments to protect that person. Not here. It was a gross fragmentation and division. So there are great moments in history where we tapped this and somehow brought it through. You could see the Declaration of Independence as a brilliant translating down, downloading. We hold these truths to be self-evident. In the course of human history, as we unfold, whatever relationships we have, if we're living in a place that compromises our freedom and independence as full citizens, we must separate. The call to separation echoes across the centuries, whether it's in the metaphor of Socrates and Plato saying, humans are living in a cave, and they look at the shadows. And the journey of a human to know thyself is here, of the rational light turned on in the logosphere, is to leave the cave and enter into the light of awakened consciousness of reason, the light of reason, where one enters into the moral space of the fulfillment of a mature human being. Or Buddha is saying, we suffer. Existence is suffering under this technology. That's a diagnostic. And we have to, it has a cause, namely how we're using our minds. Our world and our experience and our life is a function of technology that we use to make our world and our life. So when producers and content producers say, the world we're living is artificial, they're right. That's been seen long ago by our great teachers. We are as we mind. And if we're minding here, that's going to be what we get. And that's who we're going to be. And it's going to be fragmented and broken and polarized. And so opening up this place we saw in 1 through 5 is the missing science. The grammar of presence, the language of presence, which I'm suggesting we have more access to now, based upon our great visionary teachers and teachings, all pointing that way. What was missing that allows us now finally have a portal to presence, which is what this crossing is. So it's been suggested in the series of 1 to 5, and we're preparing to go 6 through 10 now. And this is a prologue, a kind of review back. Where are we? And but if you invite, from this point of view, when you see this is what's first, and nothing can be without being, there's nothing that can be outside of the infinite space. So even if you deny that there is a source, or deny that there is logos or God, or deny that there's an infinite, then you can't deny it without the infinite. Why? Be simple point, simple science, because nothing can be without being. Whatever world we have, it couldn't be without being. Nothing can be outside of this. It can't be othered from the outside. It's infinite. It's a source, and therefore it's infinitely unified with infinite diversity. So diversity is way beyond what we got here in this artifice of our wills are calling the shots. It doesn't have to be just reason. Emotions, our feelings too are operating all our art forms, all our disciplines, all our scriptures, all our worship, all our politics are going on in a profound, important, informationized space that has the subject and the object objectified. And people call it dualistic. Yes, it's more than that. It's not just a dualistic between the mind and the body. It's dualistic everywhere. It's a split between our different worlds. If you have philosophical idealism, mind is first, or materialism, matter is first, or skepticism, neither is first. Whatever, all of these different ideologies are going on within this technology. It's a brilliant technology. And we've been held, and this is the age, we've been living in this age of being held here. And I called it the age of code conflation. We didn't see the two codes. We didn't have yet the access to see this code, the red zone, call it out, and look at the consequences of fragmentation that generates widespread human dysfunctions. Source science, missing science, and that's what's called first philosophy in the Greek tradition of call it metaphysics, not metaphysics, it's the first philosophy, the philosophy, the narrative of what's first. If you call it the logos, or if you call it Om, or if you call it Brahman, or Allah, or Yah, whatever name you use, it's not here, it's deeper. Once it's realized that, well, what's on the ground floor is not finite, it's transfinite, and therefore it's infinite. And being infinite, you can't divide it. You can't talk about it in this language. For all the brilliance we have, you can't talk about it. And that's been known. Mystics saw, I see the truth and it's beyond words. But that's also a shortcoming that confesses that you don't have the code, because if the beginning is an infinite word, it's not illiterate. It has a word processing. Here. Presence is not speechless. You can't speak of it here, but it's overflowing with word power, code power. So in effect, we've suggested that if we had to step back from the source science now, with the code of the infinite unum axiom, where all is included, incorporated in its vast diversity, which means what? It means that Jesus' truth and Moses' truth and Buddha truth and Krishna truth and all of the truths we have, the 1776 truth and scientific truth, all of these truths flourish in their diversity here. They're not the same. But they're all tapping into the source. They couldn't be without the source. As brilliant as we are, we cannot step outside of the source, and we're always funded by the source, but nothing can be without being. So if we are falling short and hitting a ceiling, a barrier, a code barrier, and our scriptures, whether it's Jesus teaching the Christ is the logos in the flesh, and the kingdom of God is within us, or Krishna teaching Arjuna in the Gita that Om is within you, Arjuna, and you need to do the yoga technology to rise into the space of Brahman, into the space of Krishna, into the space of Om. Or the Buddha calling us to enter into radical emptiness, shunyata, nothingness, no thingness. Things are here. But surfing the infinite breaks through this barrier. So one of the astounding points we brought up with the uncovering of the missing logos code is that we've been laboring in an age of code conflation. That the source code has been downloaded here and compromised. And it does not help us to download it. We've got to upscript. And that's the frontier of our evolution and maturation. The call to source. We're source sapiens. We're logos kids. when we say we're children of God or children of Source, whatever you want to say, or children of the light of Logos, whatever, that means we're coded. Of course we're coded. And it's not just humans are coded, everything is coded. When the poet Blake is having a high moment, he says, infinity in a grain of sand, and eternity in an hour, for example. Or Rumi is suggesting in highest enlightened moment that there's a field beyond judgment of right and wrong. This is a place of judgment, yes or no, is or isn't. That's the binary logic. There's a place deeper. I'll meet you there. Where? In the flow of dialogue. What is that? Dialogos. Which is what? The intimate experience of connectivity with the entire ecology and with others. And that's the ethics of self and other. Unsplittable and yet diverse. It's I-thou. Monologue to dialogue. All this was brought out. So in this prologue, what I'm seeking to do with you, to build further, to go deeper, let's go deeper. Obviously, I'm trying to give a sense that this is important, and I invite anyone to blow this all away. Say, oh, shut up. How dare you suggest that Jesus did not teach us the crossing when he said, for those who have ears, let them hear. For those who have eyes, let them see. What are you talking about? Buddha saw he can't bring the teaching of the Four Noble Truths down into everyday truth and talk to the villagers who are not really literate and bring the teaching to be lost in translation. And so we become addicted in this space to the informationized version of scriptures and the Word of God and truth and so forth, and so much so that our best minds are attempting to articulate in this language form, this mind-operating process, what's beyond it. And not seeing. So what came out in 1 through 5 and 1 through 15, the other break the trance? How do you, if we're living in an age of conflation, that's serious. It's daring to say that. It's not a matter of arrogance. It's a matter of just recognizing that the infinite calls for it. It's not a shock saying this. I'm making this up. I'm seeing what our great teachers have been seeking to bring out. And we all know this. The grammar, the language of the infinite word, infinite presence. To surf that, you can't use a finitizing, polarizing, mind-operating technology of making culture and self and life and feelings and world and psyche and all of that. You can't use that level of technology to access in a healthful way the deep intimacy with the awakened self in the zone. And this is the culture awaiting. We humans are not surviving here. This is not sustainable. So I ask a question. Since we have a wealth of informationized enlightenment and scriptures and wisdom, we've got Buddha, we've got the Vedic science, we have Rumi and the Islamic highest, we have Kabbalah and the language or the call of Moses in bringing the word of Yahweh to the people. And the question is, what's lost if the vision at the highest level is here and we try to express it in this technology? It gets lost, and that's conflation. The download of the code of presence into the code of absence is lost. And so the medicine of presence is lost in the informationized, polarized, binary technology of being a human and culture and feelings, even language of the heart here. You can't say it's not in the mind, it's the heart. It's not in thought, it's in feeling. Stop thinking. That's not good enough. There's a deeper kind of thinking. Thinking doesn't belong here only. To get you to stop thinking is to stop using this technology, but that opens up a deeper form of thought. And emotions and feelings and compassion and creativity and science and politics and ethics and beauty. All of that awaits. So if we ask, two points I'd like to make. Given that we are so brilliant and genius. There couldn't be a greater genius than, say, a son of God, a Jesus, or Buddha, a son of Shunyata, or Krishna, an incarnation of Om and Brahman. They're brilliant. But they were living at times embedded within a certain cultural milieu that did not say, at some point as a human evolutionary drama unfolds on the planet Earth across all of our borders, and we have technologies to bring our different worlds into a social network, media, internet space, in a more globalized space. What are we going to do then in a globalized, what happens to Christ's truth in a globalized space? Is that the only truth? What about Muhammad and Sufi wisdom, for example, that version of it, or the Kabbalah and the mystery and power of the alchemy of Kabbalah and the letters and so forth? What happens to Buddha's truth, to Vedic science, to Chinese wisdom, African wisdom, Ubuntu? I am because you are. I am, you are. It's tapping into the I-thou space. You have to be very sophisticated and get PhDs and doctors. On the contrary, a PhD will hamper you in a way. In terms of, Buddha didn't get a PhD, neither did Jesus, as far as we know. But what happens, what's new? There's something new now, because if you look across the planet right now, it's abysmal. And I ask anyone listening, please explain to everyone else, given the wealth of wisdom we have, just scroll through TikTok and internet, for example, and you'll see so many content producers are saying that the source is the source of all. The kingdom of God is within us. That religion has been holding us back and controlling the masses from realizing the Nag Hammadi truth in the revealed texts of Mary and Philip and John, Thomas, the Gospel of Thomas, that what Christ was really teaching was the kingdom of God is within each of us. We're all Christed. We're meant to Christ. Well, the Quaker evolving of 2,000 years, I teach at Haverford College, founded by the Quakers. What's that? They are the friends of truth who see that God is in everyone. And imagine forming a college to really enter into that space of a human space, the honor code. We're blocked here. So if we have the call of 1776, the USA, the Holy Experiment, I'll use an example. We could go to France, liberty, égalité, fraternité, right? Equality of the people. No, but have we achieved it? So using the USA as one of the laboratories of the Holy Experiment, 250 years, celebrating its 250th anniversary of the democracy. Demos, we the people. Self-governance. Take a look, step back and look at the state of the human culture across borders. It doesn't look good. Look at the quality of life that people are having. In America, the democracy is in a meltdown. If there's any lesson that's going on across the planet, in Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, India, Pakistan, for example, it's everywhere. South America, across the planet. The human family is not doing very well. We haven't entered a space of compassion and ethics of a real demos, people. We the people are here. In the space of flow, in the language and grammar of presence, the technology of presence. And we're not there yet. We're fragmented, we're broken, we're in culture wars, ideology battles, religious violence. And now you begin to see in source medical science, the medicine of wisdom is here. The medicine of enlightenment, as you can see, check this out. This is a shredder. We're shredded here in this space as humans. We're fragmented. We're having eclectic pieces of wisdom. I'll take a little of Jesus, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of Buddha, a little bit of New Age, a little bit of the New Age self-help that I'm getting, and put it all together. No, it's not eclectic. To be linked into the infinite flow of the Unam is a whole different dimension of being a human. And many of the postings in the social media say, you realize we're at the edge of a great awakening. In 2012, for example, the Mayan calendar, 25,000 years, we're ready to go into the 2012 shift into awakened consciousness of the human family. No, what happened? I was part of that celebration, holding space on a planetary event with the evolutionary leaders, seeking to say, yes, we need to cross together en masse into the place of freedom as free range, awakened first persons. But we're not there. So the point I'm making is that source medicine gives us a deeper understanding of what Buddha meant by take this to suffer. Or what Jesus is teaching, that we're in sin, we're cut off from source. When you're cut off from source, the consequence of that is death. Death here is not the same as death here. When we realize we are source sapiens, even though we're not living in time here, single bracket time and separate space and time, and mind and body, and all of these different divisions here, and different ideologies and worlds and disciplines, and so we're all fragmented here. And the fragmentation technology has had devastating consequences to a wide range of human pathologies. This was all brought out in the earlier episodes. I'm doing a kind of review. Before we go on in episodes 6 to 10, we need to look back and say, what is the greatest, why do you say Gangadeen? Why do you say the greatest story never told? And I ask anyone to join and invite, use your imagination. Given the fact that despite all of our great scriptures and teachers and revelations and wisdom and enlightenment and science and arts, whatever language you use, sometimes art can take us deeper into an encounter with the field, take us out of the fragmented space and into a momentary encounter. But we can't sustain it because you need the technology to sustain life here. You need the logic of presence, the logic of the missing logic of logos, the logic of all logics, the code of all codes, the word of all words, the source of all that can be. And once we see that this is a devastating situation for humans, this is not sustainable, we're in danger. Individually and collectively. If we're living in the age of conflation and therefore somehow held here in this space, the suffering is enormous, despite access to the wisdom, informationized wisdom, but not trans-informational access to presence. So I invite you, please help. If you had to imagine that given the many different truths we have, we've got Jesus' truth, we've got scientific truth, we've got Buddhist truth, we've got Lao Tzu, we've got African wisdom, we have feminist wisdom. We have wisdom on and on and on. We have all of this. It's great. But they're in silos. They're in different worldviews, different worlds, worlds apart. The world of materialism is not the same as the world as mind is first, idealism. The world of Christ is, the kingdom of God is not the same as the Hindu Krishna teaching of the Vedas, even though some are saying, check out the connection. There is a connection. So you choose your truth. What truth do you want? You can have a menu of, take a little bit of Jesus, I'll take a little bit of Buddha, I'll do some meditation and yoga, and I'll listen to neuroplasticity, and work on my diet and all of the different postures and different, on and on, and put it together and have an eclectic life, a collage. But a collage is not integral source. So that's what we're facing. What would be then, given the fact that you don't choose truth. Truth chooses you. You don't vote. You don't vote on truth, which one you like. It's not according to your will. It's according to source. That's where truth is. So truth here is untrue. So if Jesus is saying, I'm there, which Jesus? This Jesus or this Jesus? If Jesus is Christ. If Buddha is tapping the Christ space, let's say, if Krishna is, and Socrates is, and Plato are seeking the Logos and the light of reason, and they're tapping the Logos space, and the Logos made flesh. but it's being presented in more silos in separate places. So we have a lot of silos and Lego fragments and pieces and a collage of wide variety of ideologies and narratives and worldviews. How many versions of Christianity we have? It's been said by some people is that there are over 40,000 different interpretations of Christ, churches, forms of Christianity, sectarian. That comes from here. Is there a truth, a fundamental truth? Could it be that Christ was before Jesus? I'm asking something very... Could it be that the founding of USA was before 1776 founders? That they were tapping into a fragment of it and bringing it here? What if 1776, for all humans, is that the demos, we the people, our self-governance as free beings, life, liberty, well-being for all humans? Here, not here. The point I'm making is that the science, the source science, discloses a wide range of pathologies, ontological, not just psychological, not just political, not just ideological, but ontological. Ontology is the science of being, first science. Descartes' meditations were meditations on first philosophy. Meditations on first... So this is not meditation. You can't meditate here. Meditation takes you into the source. And that's first philosophy, wisdom, to come to what is first, because what is first is the source of all. So tapping the source is the source of all scriptures. And when you're here, it's not a God's eye view, that's still limited, but it's a source view, it's a source technology. When humans are sourcing, you're tapping into the source of a wide-ranging scriptures, which are all downloads of the same Una. It doesn't mean they're the same, but they're still coming from a deep source. And they can't not. So what would be the greatest story never told? Because stories here are broken. The gospel stories, the Buddha story, the Vedanta story, the quest of what is first and the ultimate logic from Heraclitus and Parmenides and the pre-Socratic Socrates and Plato, Aristotle and Augustine, and all the way through the centuries up to Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz, Locke, Martin Hume, Kant, Nietzsche. All of these teachers are seeking to really say something is wrong and we need to get out. So just imagine, this is what I hope to do in 6 through 10. I'm going to wrap this up. This is by way of a prologue to saying, so what's next? And I just want to establish some of what's been established, that we've been living, we humans have been, it's startling, we've been living in the age of code conflation. We didn't see the two codes and how to differentiate them and disentangle them and recognize, oh, this code, the code of all codes, the source code, is deeper than all codes that we've gotten so far. And any derivative code is going to be lodged in polarity and pieces and Lego entities and divisions and categories and talk about it, objectification and subjectification, and we're not going to be able to cross into beyond that. Even though we say it's non-dual or any of these metaphors, to talk about it here is not going to get you into the source field. So you can't talk about the source, you've got a source. And that's what we're going to go more deeply into 6 through 10. So it really, and if you don't have time, any listener who would like to see what's going to go on in 6 through 10, you don't have to go back into 1 through 5 necessarily, but it'll certainly help. Of course, what I've been rehearsing is all laid out in great depth. In about 9 episodes of 1776 Now, we showed that 1776 was tapping here, not here. If they were tapping, you were downloading. We hold these truths to be self-evident. This is self-evident truth. Self-evident truth is deep. It's not just ordinary truth. But right now, here's the point. If you have Jesus' truth, and that's supposed to be ultimate, for Christians believe that's the truth, and that's nothing but the truth, that's the only way to come into communion with Logos is through Christ teachings, that the kingdom of God is within. Or you have the Vedantic science of the Vedic rishis, the Rig Vedas, and all the Upanishads, and all of the Shankara, the Bhagavad Gita, and Shankara, and all the way through the ages up to Aurobindo, speaking of the divine life, and the Ubermensch, the supermind. and on and on. And these great teachers, the Buddhas, from Buddha to Zen, Tibetan into Chinese Zen and Japanese Zen, and Nishida, the great Zen Kyoto school founder, trying to get the logic of Basho and saying it's not here. This logic is not deep enough to surf presence, which is a human calling. So if we've been living in the age of conflation, we have no choice but to address that point. Is there a deep technology that has held us? It gave us power, but it also disempowered us in a disabling way. It was so good. And we need to see it in order to have a moment of choice. A moment of choice is not option A or B here. So when you say it's a moment of choice, it means, are you facing the code and the conflation condition and ready and willing to have the courage and strength to upgrade and vote in terms of the higher technology to become veterans of the source, which awaits us, because the journey of evolution is this way. Why? Because everything, humans are coded with the source code, with the Logos code, with the Om code, with the Tao code, with the Yahweh code, Buddha code, whatever code, and it calls us relentlessly. And if we're stalled, we're going to hurt. So let's wrap this up. Stepping back from source perspective, source science, and looking at the human condition, minding our minding, and seeing, it's astounding that we weren't able to see the links between, all of the different pathologies of genocides and objectification of all kinds, and racism and sexism, homophobia, you could name it, and suicide and nihilism and anxiety and depression and all of you start to name all of the different wide-ranging human pathologies in this scientific source science, and you begin to see something astounding we couldn't see before, that the mind-operating technology is generating as a heart of those widespread pathologies. That's been shown in the previous presentations. So the point is, it's the end of the age of conflation. Our evolutionary journey is calling us, after millennia, to find the missing code of source. That's 1 through 5. And it's not a matter of choice, it's a matter of survival and thrival. We can't thrive here. We can't survive here. It's not sustainable. And things have heated up so badly across the planet, despite all of our informationized wisdom and enlightenment and scientific diagnostic and all of the different brilliant things we've got here. And AI is working big time, overtime here. Is that we've got to find a way to migrate together, individually and collectively, into the source code. So then what would be the greatest story never told? I'm wrapping this up now, which is what we're calling the overall theme for this journey, 1 through 5 and 1 through 15, breaking the trance. It's the greatest story never told, because whatever stories we've got here, it's not this story. This story cannot be told. And why is it the greatest story? Because infinite source is the greatest. It's the source of all. You can't go higher than that. And to gain intimacy and access, to surf into presence and awakened life, a kind of resurrection of the human being, the genome, from here to here. And to go from the fragmentation of silos of all of the different truth narratives and ideologies that we have here, you take your choice, they're all being sourced here. To come here is to find the foundation of the truth. That's the greatest story never told. The missing story of Logos. Whatever name, Sophia, whatever name you use for here. You put it there, but it's not the same as language here. The missing language of source is our genome, is our human genome as first persons, primary being, to come to source. So here's what we're going to do in number 6, to build on all of this. Since source is first, and unum is first, the unum axiom has to be, and you can't understand it in this derivative where you've got to somehow start out with this. And if you start out with this, what is reality like? Well, what we'll see, and I'm going to try and imagine you step back from all the silos. Do this thought experiment with me. This puts everything in subtle. Arts, dance, music, classical music, modern music. Music starts to break down all kinds of formats and forms of Christianity, right? Meditation, science, physics, quantum talk, AI, computer power, quantum computing, the quantum energy field, the God particle, all of that talk, right? All of those things. Imagine if they're all tapping into and downloads of silos. Remove the silos for a moment. Get out of conflation. End the conflation. Do an experiment. What if there is no, all of these divisions of different scriptures are removed, and all of our different histories of ancient Greek wisdom all the way through Europe into the contemporary, European philosophical wisdom, and all of the evolution of Buddha, from Buddha all the way through Nagarjuna and into Tibet and China and Japan and Kyoto Zen, all of that long journey, and the rishis and the yoga and the Vedic science all the way through Krishna, the Gita, and all the Shankaracharya, and all the way through into Aurobindo. All of these centuries of these evolutions. What if we remove the silos and realize they're all being in the Unam Axiom? What if the Unam Axiom is illuminated because we've got it in us, and realize that they're all different downloads of the fundamental field of Source? What is Source like? It's infinite. It's infinitely one. It cannot be broken and divided. Everything is non-local. There's no space or time that can be separated. There's no mind or body, there's no I and you, or ideologies. They're all meeting in a profound fractal, profound infinite flow. And we have technology to get that, to live and be humans and make our lives here. That would be the greatest story never told. And we have to do it now. So imagine now, one of the things we're going to do in 6, and I'll conclude. In entering into picking up from 1 through 5 and going from 6 and beyond. Let's see, next 5 episodes, what are we going to do? We're going to first start with saying, so what is it like here? And what's so remarkable is you're going to find that Christ was here before Jesus. If Jesus didn't show up in the historical narratives we have, Christ is still here. The Christ truth is still here. And if Buddha and Gautama did not have the enlightenment in the journey, 5,000 BCE, 500 BCE, whatever the date, historically, whatever the history of Buddha, right? He's tapping the field of Shunyata. So Shunyata is there before a particular Buddha. That's why Buddha said that if there were no Buddhas, Buddha will arise. Or Christ, there's Christ in everyone. So, the 1776ers, what if they were tapping a deep understanding of what is the nature of a demos, people, awakened people, sharing in brotherly, sisterly love in the space of deep dialogue flow, of surfing the infinite space of radical diversity, non-compromise, which is protected here with radical connectivity, unum pluribus. That's what I'm going to try and show. So again, remove the silos, all the packaging for 2,500 years, all the different histories and narratives and boundaries and disciplinary divisions, and the divisions between musicians and poets and philosophers and scriptures and seers and mystics and all of that. Wipe all of that out and just, look at their names. Look at their names in an open space where you could look at a symphony of Bach or a piece from Mozart. Just pick that out. Or a contemporary pop poet or singer who's singing her heart out and reaching you and touching you somehow. Or the most profound breakthroughs of quantum physics, theoretical physics and science and medicine and technologies of internet, all of the brilliant things going on across the planet in the midst of the profound pathologies afflicting the human condition in the age of conflation. So that's what we're going to try and do, to break out of the conflation take a fresh look of 2,500 years, where we're not putting Buddha over here, and Socrates over here, and Krishna over here, and Jesus over here, and Rumi over here, and science is over here, and feelings over here, and emotions over here, and art is here, and dance over here, and music, and all. No, break away all those barriers and just open up. What does it look like here before all of these divisions and downloads? Could it be that we could see Christ very clearly here? With or without Jesus. If Jesus did not show up as that miracle happened, still we can have access to Christ, which is what? The kingdom of source. Pervades every human being, and therefore love one another. And to love source with all our hearts is not to privilege our own technology, such as it is, great as it may be, but to step back and go to a deeper source technology. That's love. So that's what we're going to do, folks. If you're interested, join me and look out for the sequel, episode number 6, 7, 8, 9. In number 6, I'm going to try and start out with enforcing the unum axiom. Where does that come from? Infinite unity. If the ground floor is infinite, which it is, you can't finitize it, then the science is profound and it's infinitely connected. You can't crack it, you can't silo it, you can't break it. You can't step outside of it. And you can only exist and be and speak and think or not speak or whatever in that space. You can't not source. You can't be without being. Being is source. So could we see that, okay, we've got Jesus, the miracle of Jesus, or Moses, or Socrates, or Descartes tapping into the first philosophy, or the Vedantic science, or Buddha's breakthrough. What if we could see that Buddha was tapping here? This is shunyata. This is non-locality, interconnectivity of the Buddha. Buddha was bringing this through, and Vedanta was bringing this through. And Plato, Socrates, Aristotle were trying to bring this through, the Logos. And Jesus was trying to bring this through. That would be remarkable if we see that there's a source field that is so profound, and we can now find the code to bring it out, not here in this language, but to manifest it in the language, speech acts of the source. What if we found that this is where 1776 was tapping? This is the demos. This is the demosocracy. And it's not just for the colonies it's for all humans living in the source space of nonviolence. What would politics like? What would be the psyche? What would be human relations? What would be education? Education has become a business. But code education, learning the code and moving, is a human education of the human here. We have to raise our children as humans. We need education. We need politics that's humanized, the human space. We need medicine. It's not just business, but healing people. For example, that's what we're going to do to build upon what we've done so far and go through 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever it takes in the sequel. So thank you for your patience and bearing with me. And obviously, I'm passionate about this. This is I feel that I'm in service to the source. That I'm not making this up. It's not about Ashok Gangadeen. It's not my opinion. I'm attempting to do what has not been clearly done. I couldn't do and see if it weren't for Jesus, if it weren't for Buddha, if it weren't for the Vedic tradition and Lao Tzu, and it weren't for the European tradition from Socrates all the way to Heidegger, and from Buddha all the way to Nishida, and the Vedas all the way to Aurobindo, and all the way to Teilhard de Chardin, and so many other geniuses that are saying it's over here. So what we're going to do in 6, 7, 8, and build up is to look at these names. If we look back, remove all the separations for 2,500 years and consider a unified field of our geniuses of all fields and walks and talks of life, who amongst over 25 years, 100 years, made the greatest contributions to crossing? That's what we're going to do in 6 through 10. Who of the great revered teachers does Jesus make it into here as a pioneer? Does Moses? Does Socrates, Plato, Aristotle? It's Rumi, Ibn Arabi, Kabbalah, science, AI? Big question. Is AI intrinsically a technology here? And can AI enter into the human surfing of the infinite presence? For example, it's going to completely change. To go from this first to this first, it's going to change everything that we've been familiar with. And I want to open up the space and look at all of our great geniuses and contributors in all fields and ask with you, do you think this person has contributed to getting wise about this shift and to see this and to open up technological breakthroughs that would lead to getting the missing language? And in such a way that we're not talking about it in the old way and killing it by informationizing it, but going trans-information by insisting on enforcing the unum axiom language first. So join us in this exploration of episodes 6 through 10. Just to mention in anticipation, let this be a trailer, a prologue. Thank you very much. I hope to see you again. Bye-bye.